Oanna's burning. Just us and the monsters. Brother against brother. Below the burning walls of Oanna's gun tower, Fulgrim smiled. His teeth gleamed in the firelight. His long, white hair blew out in the night wind, dancing like the vast tongues of flames above him. "You're very young," he said. He crouched beside the Imperial fist sprawled on the wall top. "Very young. New to this," he whispered. Marius was trying to crawl. His bones were as broken as his warplate. He had lost his helm somewhere, and his face was drenched in blood. Every shaking move took supreme effort. Every centimeter he dragged himself through the slick of his own blood was a triumph of will. "Are you trying to escape?" Fulgrim asked. He tutted. "I don't think you're supposed to do that. Your father doesn't like it. You're supposed to stand and fight. But then, you are new. Maybe no one's had time to tell you the rules." The Phoenician looked around. Across the broad top of the Saturnine wall, his children were massacring the wall guard garrison. Still more of his children were arriving through the void breach, via drop pods, or scaling the bulwarks from the wall-based deployments. The Sonnets had shut down. The guns of the Saturnine wall, still firing, had begun to disintegrate the vulnerable dungeons, destroying all the beautiful instruments they carried. The siege engines were collapsing in vast fire clouds that lit up the face of the wall like sunrise. It was a shame, but the carriers and instruments had finished their performance anyway. The Third Legion were in. They had claimed a rampart of the ultimate wall. "I'll tell you this," said Fulgrim gently. "Even if you could run, and you can't with those poor legs of yours, mind, I don't think you could escape. There's no sanctuary here." He glanced at the palace beyond them. "Soon, there won't be any sanctuary anywhere," he added. He looked down at the Imperial fist again. Marius was still crawling, gasping and straining with each tiny movement he managed to make. "Poor frightened child," Fulgrim said. "There, there." His face darkened. "Oh, I see," he said. "You're not trying to escape. You're trying to reach that." He glanced at the chipped gladius that lay a meter or so in front of the young captain. Marius's bloody fingers were clawing towards it. Fulgrim stood up. "You don't want that," he said. "I've got a much nicer one." He drew his long, single-edged sword and took it in a two-handed grip. "See?" he said. He raised his arms to strike. Something hit him. Something cannoned into him and staggered him backwards. Something hacked at him. Something was hurting him. Fulgrim wrenched backwards. Sigismund kept swinging, his power blade scoring and cracking Fulgrim's beautiful armor. "Get off!" Fulgrim exclaimed. "Get away from me!" He was 3 times the Templar's size. He kicked out, like a man kicking at an aggressive dog, and knocked Sigismund backwards. Sigismund rolled and came back to his feet. He swung his blade, two-handed, into Fulgrim's thigh. The Phoenician shrieked, more in indignation than pain. The shriek was attuned across strange pitches, and it shivered the stones of the wall. He snatched Sigismund up by the throat with one hand. The blade, still bound to Sigismund's wrist by its chain, pulled out of the wound. Choking, Sigismund grabbed the dangling blade and struck repeatedly at the giant holding him. He lopped off a lock of the Phoenician's hair. Then he cut his lip. Fulgrim shrieked again and flung Sigismund away. The Templar sailed 5 meters, hit the wall of the Oanna's tower, and dropped onto the platform. "How dare you!" Fulgrim yelled, striding towards where Sigismund lay. He staunched his split lip with one hand and spun his long sword in the other. "Sigismund's courage sometimes outstrips his abilities." Fulgrim stopped. He turned. He smiled with blood-pinked teeth. Ogle Dorn glared back at him. He flexed his grip on his raised greatsword. Mine doesn't, said Dorn.